Christmas, but it's also another very, very important week here as we celebrate episode 139. No, that's not the milestone. Your playoffs may have already started. I know for me, my playoffs don't start till this coming week. But anyway, to get you ready for what might be your semifinals or your finals is the fantasy expert himself from Sportsnet, from UFFL, Andy McNamara. I can't believe I butchered that. My bad. But Andy, how are you?
I'm doing good, my friend. Doing good, Griff. How are you?
Doing good. I'm doing good. Like I told you off air, just had my birthday yesterday. Unfortunately, I was supposed to go to the Raps game, but then that got postponed because of everything going on, which we'll get to in a bit. But I got to stay home, watch the two games. Unfortunately, your Browns were on the wrong side of things, but it was that game was a much better game than what we got at nighttime.
Well, yeah, you're right. At least there was the drama of the Browns game. Heartbreaking as per usual. That's what we're used to as Cleveland Browns fans. You never get fully numb to it, I guess, but it's tough. It's just so weird that week 15 goes to Tuesday and then week 16 starts on Thursday. Like it's just like you get the 1 day break and then off you go again.
Exactly. Like we get tomorrow. Like it's so weird. Like for the next few days, it's like so the two games yesterday. Then we have two games tonight, which at this point, if for mostly us in Canada, that's the only sport really on tonight because there's one hockey game and I think only a handful of NBA. And then tomorrow, nothing. And then Thursday we get a game. Friday, nothing. And then Christmas Day, you get to open a gift if your Browns playing along with the Colts and Cardinals. And then a full slate on Sunday. And then Monday. And then also on Sunday, my personal favorites is starting back up again, the World Juniors. So for sports fans, look, I love it.
Oh, yeah, this is a great time of year with it, especially you add in the Christmas Day games. Lambeau on Christmas. I feel better being able to watch it from home than I have some reporter friends I have to travel to Green Bay from Cleveland. Let me tell you, they are not too pleased with having to make that trip. That is from what I'm told, to get to the airport there and all that and the commute from there, it is a grind. So that's not great, but hey, we get to be entertained, right?
Exactly. That's the thing. Like Christmas Day, look, you get to wake up, you get to open your presents, you get to celebrate with your family, and then you get to watch your football team play. I even know just wanted to make the fantasy football reference to it. Last year's Christmas game featured a 6-touchdown performance by Alvin Kamara. So we may see something similar on Christmas Day, including to what I think now is the best fantasy football player who personally burned my boys on Saturday night, in Jonathan Taylor, who plays in the second game on Christmas Day. Excuse me.
Jonathan Taylor has been an absolute man beast. Like that's just beyond ridiculous, right? The season he's been able to have, really taking over as the fantasy superstar when Derrick Henry went down. And it seemed like it took a while, right, to then finally figure out, Colts coaching staff, it's a really good idea to play Jonathan Taylor because he is unstoppable. And what does that do for fantasy? It obviously means you have a true RB1, which gets rarer and rarer. But it also means that, all right, well, Carson Wentz maybe isn't the fantasy low-end QB1 that he was earlier in the year, but 2 quarterback leagues he works, and it allows opportunity for Michael Pittman to jump up as that kind of solid WR2. So it really makes everything work.
Exactly. That's the one thing. And sorry, too, if there's some pinging. I just had a couple of notifications. I had to turn things off. But no, you're right. Like, it's opened up the offense a lot to even where, look, like, me saying this is like just kind of like putting lemon in a wound. But the fact that Wentz only had to do what he did, and then Taylor literally just can find those seams and burst through it. It's just proof that when you watch him, you have that like security blanket of, hey, it's a reliable guy. It's like a reliable RB1. Like if you look at a lot of the RB1s this year, look, you have Henry hurt, McCaffrey done for the season, Saquon Barkley really wish-washy up and down. The same thing with Ezekiel Elliott. Jonathan Taylor is probably the most trustworthy RB1 that's come out through the season. I'm just saying that because he's been there start to finish with no concerns. And because that's the thing I was getting from last year, where a lot of people were still saying with McCaffrey, I think he only played like 2 or 3 games last year, but in those 2 or 3 games, I think he had always north of 25 points. So that's why I think this year he was the number 1 pick in a lot of leagues. This year, I think it's going to, like, and I was always on the boat more of, hey, take Derrick Henry. I think right now, if you're looking at next year already, I don't know a world where Jonathan Taylor is not the number one pick in a lot of drafts.
I think it's Jonathan Taylor. He goes past Alvin Kamara. Not Alvin Kamara's fault, because right now it's Taysom Hill, who is a fantasy vulture, a Grinch, if you will. And we don't know what's going to happen next year in New Orleans. Are they going to trot back out Jameis Winston? Is it Hill? Is it Ian Book, who they got from Notre Dame in the draft last. Like, what are they doing? Whereas in Indianapolis, Carson Wentz, while mobile in the sense that he can move around the pocket well, roll out, play action, bootleg, all that good stuff, he's not going to be running for 100 yards in a game. If you're going to run the ball, you're going to give it to Jonathan Taylor. And that's really what you want. That's why Najee Harris was so appealing this year in Pittsburgh. Roethlisberger ain't running, right? And the Steelers' offensive line is quite poor in comparison to Indianapolis as well. So he is setting up to be just a tremendous RB1, likely first overall pick. And Griff, what's interesting too is every couple of years you have that turnover. It wasn't that long ago. Todd Gurley was the first overall pick. David Johnson was a first 1 or 2 pick, right?
Don't remind me.
Gurley's not playing. Johnson you can't touch. And now we're kind of moving on from that next phase of where it's guaranteed to be either CMC or Barkley or Zeke Elliott. Now we're starting to transition into that next wave.
The other interesting thing about a lot of these more top-end running backs now is if you look at guys like Saquon, Ezekiel Elliott, Christian McCaffrey, they were all top 10 picks in the drafts. But then if you look at the guys like Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, these guys are all second, third-round picks. It's like the same thing with wide receivers this year, where a lot of these wide receivers on the free agency spectrum weren't getting those big money deals because a lot of teams know for as good as the NFL crop is, there's a whole other crop coming up from college. Like, look at a Jamar Chase, for example. I know he plays in your division in Cincinnati, but he had a poor game on Sunday, but he's been very consistent when it comes to fantasy football, and that's what you're looking for in a fantasy team, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And you want to look at what I always say, Griff, is opportunity equals success in fantasy football. Who is going to get the most opportunity? You could have a super talented player. If he's in a backfield committee, he's not going to be as valuable as maybe a slightly less talented guy, but he's going to get all the carries. Same thing with wide receiver. Now, you also have to look at the offense. So to your point with Jamar Chase, well, both him and T. Higgins are very fantasy relevant as WR1s because Cincinnati throws the ball a ton. Whereas, let's say with my Browns, who are a run-first team, well, you have to downgrade any pass catcher because it's a run-first offense. So it's all things you have to take into account when it comes to building your fantasy team.
Oh, 100%. Like, I feel like a lot of times people just go in for like the hot player or the hot commodity. Yeah. But then even too, you get all these guys in later rounds. Like in the one league where I'm in first place right now, one of my best players all year has been Deebo Samuel.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And how about these? Every year there's a 1 or 2 waiver wire gems that help you win a fantasy league. So the league that I'm in first place in, coming off the fantasy bye, I picked up off of waivers, I think week 2, maybe for both of them, early in the season in any case, Hunter Renfrow and Cordarrelle Patterson. Fantasy studs. Absolute studs, especially in PPR for Renfrow. They have lit it up. Those are guys you got for free, for next to nothing. And those are the type of players, you don't always hit on them. It's like almost like the lottery, better odds, but almost like the lottery where you'll make 30 roster moves during the year. You just maybe need that 1, maybe 2 who can hit and give you that comfort level that you can slide them in. They can either be stars, serviceable in the backup sense or whatever. But those two, especially Renfrow and Patterson, my goodness. Christian Kirk, too, has been really good. And I got him, I think, as a really late round draft pick this year as well.
Because that's even the other thing with Christian Kirk, too, though. He's like taking advantage of a situation like right away. Like he was the kind of guy I would go and look at being like, oh, hey, can I kind of grab him as soon as DeAndre Hopkins went down? Because I'll tell you, in a league, I made a trade of Jefferson for D-Hop, me and the other guy thinking, hey, it's going to be fair. And I ended up getting burned by it, which sucked. But I'll live with it. I'll live with it. But all in all, too, the one receiver there's 2 receivers we haven't brought up yet who have just been electric this year. Because I even see a lot of people doing the 2 RB strategy, which I did. But I've seen a lot of people do this where they'll go with their first, like if the back half, say if you're picking back half of the first round, or if you have the snake draft where say if you're a 10-man league, you're picking 10 and 11. I've seen a lot of guys in that position do Devontae Adams and Travis Kelce, and those guys right now are the ones that are probably in line to win their leagues. So for as good and valuable as running backs are, there's even guys like say a Leonard Fournette or even James Robinson who kind of like got left by the wayside where you could go and grab them in rounds 3, 4, and 5.
That's it, right? So it all depends where you're drafting. I'm a big believer in getting the tight end early because look once again, folks, okay? I told you on this show, on my show, on many shows, that if you don't take a tight end early, you will be streaming, chasing your tail, and we'll gain the hashtag Ask Andy all season long of what do I do at tight end. And I'll keep helping you. But I beg you, listen to the strategy of if you are a later first round pick, take the tight end or if at the top of the turn because Kelsey, Waller. Now Waller's been out a few games, but he's been stellar. You know, you get George Kittle back, but you missed on him the first bunch of the year. Who else can you really rely? Kyle Pitts had a couple games. I like his talent overall. You can't count on him. You can get Mark Andrews. Yeah, but like, look at the tight end one numbers. It is the most deceptive fantasy stat, and I guess like signage put on a player anywhere in fantasy football. Because usually RB1, you're thinking, all right, 20-something points, wide receiver, the same quarterback. Tight end one in a 12-team league can be like 7 points. Like, that's for real, right? So you got to try to hit on those top guys. And I like that stat because, okay, it's all about strategy. You go Adams and Kelsey, you're set there. But now you got to really go hard on running back. And if you don't, maybe you stack up, and depending on your league, everyone owns their league mates. Some leagues trade a lot, some don't. Maybe you look to trade later and create some draft capital. The 2 quarterback comment you brought to, I am a huge believer in as well. In one of my leagues, I had Dak Prescott. And much later, I'm a big believer in Jalen Hurts, and I got Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts has covered me off quite a few times this year when it comes to Dak Prescott. So I'm a believer in that as well.
Oh, no, 100%. That's the one thing. Jalen Hurts has really come out of his shell this year in the sense of like where I know some people, is he a franchise quarterback? That's still to be seen. But from the fantasy perspective, which I feel like I think a lot of people pay too much attention to what he does on the field and how the team is. That goes into a lot of the stats. Like I'm actually going to go back to the tight end conversation. And I know he's out for the season, but look at a TJ Hawkinson, for example. Mm-hmm. Not on the best team, but he's been getting the ball. He was getting the ball a lot. So sometimes I feel like you have to ignore the team situation and strictly pay attention to the player as a whole. Because if you get caught up in the team drama, that's what's going to burn you.
That's it. You look at the numbers at the end. Blake Bortles, remember old Blake Bortles? He's a good fantasy quarterback. Terrible real-life quarterback. Comes in the fourth quarter, garbage points count the same, people. Doesn't matter how it looks. Just get the points. Right? That's it. So for Jalen Hurts, you know, I don't really care what happens to the Eagles. If he does well, then that's great. If he's on the field, he's running around or whatever, that's awesome. Just matters on the result. And, of course, if you feel it can be sustainable. Because you can have that sort of chaos and it can still be sustainable because of a bad team.
Oh, no, 100%. That's the whole thing. Like I said, look, hey, ignore the bad team thing. Obviously, there are some teams where you just don't get those players. Like, for example, there's not a lot of people in, like, say, Houston. The Jets, Michael Carter had, like, a couple of weeks here or there. And then the only other one I can think of with the very well chaotic Jacksonville, which I like to say the expression, they run a better wrestling promotion than football team, is James Robinson.
James Robinson. And you know what? Elijah Moore out of the Jets, too. I want some shares of that guy next year.
I do, too. You know what? Yeah, Elijah Moore's a guy that's really come on. Michael Carter. Corey Davis, I feel like I think it was one of those people that everyone had as like his peak. Like they were like hoping that he would, be that guy. But then in reality, he's never had to be that guy. So I feel like next year he could be a guy you could get later on, maybe have for a flex or a good bench candidate as well.
Yeah, and we'll have to see what changes happen in New York, right? That's the Jets are. It's a tricky situation, but you still have a couple guys, like we said, like Moore and Carter to build on. And right now in Jacksonville, what happens next year? New coach. A lot remains to be seen from them. I would say it's really James Robinson, and depending if you get a good coach in for dynasty, I know a lot of people down on Trevor Lawrence. He didn't get bad at football overnight. He got Urban Meyer. And I hope, for his sake, he gets a competent head coach that can really start to build him up.
Oh, 100%. That's the big thing, too, because if you can build his confidence back up, he's going to be a good player both on the field and on the fantasy football field. And even, too, they have to add some weapons because he's got, like, nobody good to throw to right now. And the other factor as well with the James Robinson thing that we all forgot about because he's out for the season is the Travis Etienne factor.
Oh, right. Jeez, he's going to be coming back. Yeah, I forgot about him. Yeah, you're right.
I remember as soon as he was drafted, I said, "Oh, that kills." I thought right away, I'm like, James Robinson's done his fantasy because James Robinson last year fantasy waiver wire pickup of the season in 2020.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He was undrafted guy, right? And so Now it's like, all right, well, what are we looking at for this year, for next year? You sort of got the Philip Lindsay treatment, right? Had a great year, and then they added more. It's like, well, this guy's doing great. What are you doing? So yeah, we're gonna have to see how that works out in Duval.
100%. Well, that Duval's going to be one of the like storylines of the offseason to follow. But you know what? That's not here nor there. We still got a lot of football to play because I saw a tweet last night from Matthew Berry that said, I know everyone was complaining about the Bears and the Vikings, but in 3 months, we're going to be fiending for football. So you know what? I took that. I'm like, you know what? That is the truth. We're going to be wanting the game back. So I'm going to appreciate it now because before we know it, we're going to snap our fingers and it's the middle of February and it's gone. Before we get you out of here today, I have two questions I want to ask you. One, okay. I think I already know the answer, but I just want to hear it from you. Is who is your fantasy football MVP this year? And if there are any people that need a waiver wire pickup for Week 16, who are you already looking at?
Great question. So my MVP is it's Jonathan Taylor, and it's because you don't just look at star power; you look at expectation. People expected good, but there was still Nakeem Hines. Remember at the beginning of the year, they re-signed Marlon Mack. What was he going to be? He had a good start, but not a great start. So it's got to think, wow, all right, this is the guy. This is when it's happening, and there we can going forward. For Week 16, as far as a couple guys, I don't mind Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Lions. Lions, again, on a bad team, you have to always follow your expectations, but he's hit at least 11 targets and 73 yards in his last 3 games. I can't ignore that. Justin Jackson is somebody to watch with Austin Eckler having a bit of an ankle issue. There's talk too with like Duke Johnson and all that. I don't know. I'm not too crazy about that. Those would be sort of my top 2 guys. Keep an eye too if Pat Freiermuth does play. I like him in there for Pittsburgh. If he doesn't, maybe James Washington's a bit of a flyer to put in there for the Steelers as well.
You know what? I'm going to agree with you too on the Duke Johnson. I feel like that's that one pick like that always comes along where it's like this random guy has a great week. Everyone goes, picks him up, like Elijah Mitchell earlier this year, for example. You pick him up, you spend all your FAB on him, and he gets you like 4 or 5 points. Not sure what happened, folks. I think we may have lost Andy here for the second.
Oh, I'm here.
Oh, you're back. You're back. Okay, cool. He kind of went silent there for a second because he kind of cut in and out as well, but it's no big deal. So the thing I'm going to repeat myself was what I was saying with Duke Johnson. I feel like it's like Elijah Mitchell earlier this year. You know where he had that one? I think it was week 1. He popped off. Everyone went spending their FAP money on him. And then I think he put up like 3 or 4 points against the Eagles the next week. I think Duke Johnson's the exact same way. I actually like all your pickups. I really like the Amon-Ra St. Brown pickup as well, considering the Lions are playing a very weakened Falcons secondary this coming Sunday.
Oh, yeah, and the Falcons stink, right? So it's a good – and you know what? For DFS, like get Cordarrelle Patterson into your life. Do that. Russell Gage as well. Gage keeps going, man. That everyone's focusing on Kyle Pitts. The defense is on Kyle Pitts. And Patterson, you can line up anywhere. Russell Gage pretty consistently over the past month has been real good.
Exactly. And also the one thing I'm going to say about Kyle Pitts, too, before we go is I like him. I think he's got a bright future. I think it's just a lot of people were investing their stock way too much into a rookie tight end thinking – he's going to be this sensation when in reality, a lot of tight ends need a couple of years to grow. Like George Kittle didn't really pop off until his third. He was good like through his first 2 years, but it was his third season when he fully had a fully healthy Jimmy Garoppolo where he's good. So with Pitts, give it some time, but I could see next year being a good year, like how TJ Hawkinson had to break out last year.
Yeah. And plus too, Pitts is on a garbage offense and they just need to blow that up. Right.
I remember thinking, so the Falcons played the Pats about a month ago, and I'm like, okay, let's see what the Falcons are all about. I thought, hey, this could be a trap game. Then I realized the only pressure they were getting was from the blitz, and their offensive line was horrible. So I'm just like, yeah, no, the Falcons are just a bad football team. I don't know how they're 6-8.
Yeah, just plain and easy. That's just what it is, right?
Pretty much. Well, anyway, folks, we're gonna get Andy out of here. Him and I, look, we had a good conversation here, but I think it's just time to wrap things up. This has been episode number 139 of YWC Football Talk, presented by SidelineShop.ca. For all your jersey needs, folks, visit SidelineShop.ca. Well, anyway, Andy, it was very great having you on again. Enjoy this week of football. Have a very happy holidays to you and your family. And anyway, folks, I will see you again for the Christmas show coming out this coming Thursday. Have a good one, everybody.